You're about to listen to a podcast full of wonder, excitement, and discovery. It's time for an adventure through Odyssey. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Adventures Through Odyssey podcast, Odyssey Revisited. I'm Will here with John. It's time for our February news recap. But before we start, I know this is an Odyssey podcast and this is a few weeks old, but I just have to talk about what might be the most objectively exciting news to happen in Christian film in the last decade.
What?
We're finally getting a Larry Boy movie.
Oh, I did see that. That's pretty cool. Pretty
Yes.
good.
Yeah. Now,
is
so the only thing
the original creative team of VeggieTales involved?
So to answer your question, John, Phil Vischer tweeted out, "There's a Larry Boy movie coming out. No one has told me about this. I am not involved in it. I have no idea who's making it." And in a later comment, he mentions he found it out on Twitter. So here's the thing. I can excuse Christian nationalism, but I draw the line at a Larry Boy movie with no Phil Vischer in it.
I just feel like it's weird because when hasn't been involved, I don't think VeggieTales has even done particularly well.
So that's the thing. He's never not been involved, if that makes sense. Like, he was the voice on the Netflix show. He came back to help write the reboot, which apparently ended last year, and I didn't hear about this. So all that they've really done about him is this podcast, the VeggieTales. And I went and listened to it. I think they're doing a Larry Boy movie because the Larry voice sounds a little better than the Bob voice.
Yeah.
I also just think, like, look, I liked Jonah. I liked the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything. Isn't that kind of your basic pitch for a VeggieTales movie?
Yeah, I mean, it's a decent pitch, but...
Yes. Now, I just want to know, what is this movie going to be about? Is it going to be Into the Larryverse, where we see every VeggieTales character Larry has played?
That. I don't want that.
Then at the end, Jim Caviezel, Willem Dafoe, and the dude from The Chosen walk out of a portal?
Why Willem Dafoe?
They've all played Jesus.
Oh.
Willem Dafoe was Jesus in The Last Temptation of Christ.
No, I knew that. I thought you were referring to that Super Bowl commercial. That was Mark Wahlberg and the guy from The Chosen.
Well, yes, and side note, I'm guessing Mark Wahlberg is going to be Paul when we get to it, given how this is going. But
I feel like that would be weird, because I feel like they've been pretty decent with ethnicity stuff. Actually, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. Are the people from the Chosen like Jewish or like Middle Eastern at all?
I have no idea, but the actor who plays Jesus is 50, so...
Well, that's not the worst thing.
Probably true.
I'm sure their thought is that I think there's a whole thing like that they're probably like, well, is it really like, I think if we cast someone who is 30, people would be like, Jesus looks too young.
Well, that's
like, how
possible.
am I supposed to take this guy seriously? Even though, like, that's probably part of it in reality. But also, I mean, people lived less time, so I don't know, like, people living like more like 30 to 40 years is the average time someone's living. If like people looked older because life was harder, like, I don't know how it necessarily works. But it's like how the new Napoleon movie cast Joaquin Phoenix, who's like 50 plus, when Napoleon at the time the stuff was happening was in his like 20s and 30s.
Yeah, I know.
I think people are like, well, we can't cast someone the real age because people aren't gonna like respect or believe that, you know?
Exactly. So anyway, back to the Larry Boy movie. I would like to contend for a post-credit scene where Bible Man shows up, and then at the end of Bible Man versus Larry Boy, we tease Novacom, and Dr. Blackadder is the big overarching villain. And this movie is, of course, directed by Mel Gibson, because who is the Zack Snyder of Christian filmmaking more than Mel Gibson?
Stop.
Look,
they've already fired... He's definitely not that of Christian filmmaking. He's never really made... Okay, it gets complicated. I mean, Passion of the Christ, sure. But then, like, outside of that, it's like Hacksaw Ridge is more like a kind of a Christian movie.
Well, aren't the Zack Snyder movies kind of superhero movies?
They are. Almost everyone is.
Right. All I'm saying is they've already kind of fired the James Gunn of Christian movies from the project, so we have to go with the Zack Snyder of Christian movies.
Oh, you mean Phil Fisher?
Yes. So anyway, also set an action scene to God's Not Dead. Okay, don't do
Well,
that
yeah,
because
sure.
I hate that song, but
That would be funny. I always thought the God's Not Dead movie should have a scene where like the atheists are losing to which is kind of what those movies are.
yes.
To like it's like Christians win, atheists lose. That's basically what those movies are. It's like to the song God's Not Dead, He's Surely Alive. I thought that would have
Yeah.
been very entertaining. Probably kind of dumb. Like I get why they didn't do it, but I was like, I'd be entertained by that scene.
Yes. Anyway, moving on to Odyssey. So we had 2 podcast episodes. One was with an interview with Molly's voice actor's mom. The second one I found very interesting because they interviewed the guy who created the AI technology for Eugene's voice. And
Who created it? Don't you think it's just the guy who downloaded the AI app?
well, no, someone actually like created the technology and they interviewed him because he's doing it ethically or something where he wants to make sure there's permissions and he's not like just handing it out to anybody. So here's the funny thing. They tiptoe around that he lives in the Ukraine. This is important because the episode of the podcast is called Eugene's New Voice Came from War-Torn Ukraine. So
That's pretty funny.
I don't know if that was like an unintentional thing, but I was just listening to the episode like, wow, they're really like tiptoeing around the whole Ukraine and the war thing. Then the title's just
I wonder if they were like worried. Like, oh, well, we don't want to get too into it, or like, we don't know if like the bosses are gonna wanna like what their position is on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And then they're like, what? This guy's from the Ukraine? We're super pro Ukraine. Put it in the title.
so yeah, anyway.
Which I mean,
just
yeah,
found that
I don't think it's bad. I think it's good to promote the Ukraine when possible.
yeah, I totally agree.
I
just
it's
found
just
it
it could also be they're like, this is an Odyssey podcast. This isn't a war torn Ukraine podcast. But then someone in marketing was like, huh?
yeah, so maybe it was just the editing. Maybe they didn't want to talk. I don't think they need to stop the episode to discuss the war in the Ukraine. I just found it interesting. Anyway,
Yeah.
so we're moving on to the readable material this month, and we have a new bite-sized adventure that has started. So Whit, Connie, Whit, Connie, Renee, and Jules are coming home from Cedar Point. But confirming we are in Ohio. The car breaks down and they have to stay at a haunted house for the night.
Yeah.
With some creepy bald guy there who I'm guessing is going to be some lore character. But at the time it ended, Jules woke up in the middle of the night to words written on the mirror in blood, but it turns out to be lipstick. And so Connie, Renee, and Jules have a room and Whit has a separate room, and they all woke up to cookies on their dresser. So I'm guessing this is going to be like some he wasn't actually a creeper thing.
Yeah. Probably.
Now, they did find like a newspaper article about someone who got murdered, and the person who did the murder sort of looks like the hotel person.
Intriguing.
So we'll see where that goes. And the monthly comic,
I did murder that person, but I've changed and accepted Christ. But you still gotta. It's like, yes, but you still deserve prison. Please get over here.
That's probably how it would go. But okay. And the monthly comic is Eugene's going to a convention. And Buck thinks Eugene needs a new sense of style. So he helps get Eugene a new sense of style. But we go to the convention, and they're all wearing vests. That's the joke.
Intriguing.
Okay. So on to the weekly comic where Trent and Mandy are still going to prom. It's fine. It's Trent is clearly getting more and more stressed. You can tell the payoff is going to be Mandy just wants to have a nice night with Trent. But
Yeah, of course. This is less about Odyssey because I don't think it's fair. I'm not really harping on Odyssey for doing it. I always think it's weird how like things that are really geared towards kids that are like 12, like Odyssey probably like 12 or under is the demographic we're thinking.
yes,
That like we're like they're like the prom, and that's like in a lot of like children's shows, and I'm like, is the prom that big of a deal? I mean, I was prom king, and I don't think it was that big of a deal.
your friends would beg to differ.
But it's just like I don't know. I feel like it's always weird to me when like children's shows are like prom. And it feels like it's just they're trying to hype it up for like future. Especially because I feel like the reason people remember prom is like kind of for like unsavory reasons.
That's probably true.
But
yeah, so it's it's meeting people. So David, Mandy's brother, has to drive them part of the way, and now they smell like pizza. But I think my favorite scene, because it's such a nice little nod, and I'm not entirely sure the writers did this on purpose, is when they go to the Electric Palace, and Bart Rathbone is unambiguously nice to Mandy. Here is why that is important. I think this is a callback to Bart remembers that Mandy sold her doll for money after the tornado to give to the Rathbones. And it would not shock me at all if that scene is in there to like say Bart always will have a soft spot for Mandy. Now, could the writer have just done that coincidentally? Yes. But
yeah, I mean, it would be a good callback.
yes. Yeah, so it's a good callback. Again, there's some air sucked out because we know Trent and Mandy get married. I never find prom hijinks to be that funny, like John said. And it's just it would be like a fine middle of the road episode of the show.
Yeah.
So we will see where that goes. But now on to the main event, one last treasure hunt. Molly's father brings her one last treasure hunt when she turns 12 that uncovers some deep truths about her and her father's relationship. And no, that's not the actual description. I just kind of...
Yeah. So I think this is a fine episode.
Is that it?
Well, I was seeing how you were going to respond to it.
Oh, sorry. I was pulling up the wiki page. No, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a very sweet episode. Yes, it is a little hard to feel a connection to Molly's dad when he was dead before we met him.
I think it does the best job it can. Right? It is like like the stuff where it's like, oh, here's like your dad on a date, and like here's where like he found out that like you were gonna be born. And it's like I think for like a 25 minutes, I think they do the best job they kind of can.
Yeah.
Where they actually have his voice on screen. Right? Like at times, like I mean you have something like The Truth About Zachary, which I think arguably like does it better, but that's almost because it's like his character, it's like you're viewing it in the character. The problem is we know her character more, like,
Yes.
and it's just like it's hard. They kind of have to set up that it's like, oh, there's some issue, and like you kind of know what it's gonna be. Is like she said something dumb to her dad in the past or something, or like, and she's like upset, and then it's like, oh, like he was probably mad at me.
Yeah, so we'll get back to that part of the episode in a second because I have a very, very heavy thought on that. But let's start from the beginning. I think they actually could have just pulled it off with Molly doesn't want to deal with the fact that her dad died. Again, for reasons we'll come back to. I mean, look, I know it's a kid show. From the minute Pullout said he had a secret case and they make sure to mention, man, this box stayed in the tree for 3 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, clearly Pull House is in on this, which I liked. This is the one thing. So I really like Molly's dad as a character because he's whimsical, but none of the adults are annoyed by him.
Yeah.
Like, Polehouse doesn't make snide remarks about, well, he wasn't that great outside of that, or the mom never sounds exasperated with him.
Yeah.
So, nice little addition. We'll talk about this, but when we went to J&J Antiques, I thought for a minute, is this the guy who lied to them to get money for a TV and got fired, but somehow maybe he turned himself around and got rehired?
I never thought it was gonna be that. It's weird because it felt like the whole episode they were circling that he might have been a legacy character,
Yes, I totally agree.
right? Like, and you could have had something like, I mean, I'm sure there's some kid where like you could argue he had like changed his name, or like she took her mom's name for whatever reason.
Right.
I don't know. But like it's so weird because it's like, oh, we go to JJ Antiques and I work there, and we go to Tom Riley's farm, and we go to Wonder World, and we go to like, and Jason's there. And it's so weird, right? Because we're just circling all this legacy content that they don't often bring up.
This is true.
And it's a fun romp, like for a old school Odyssey fan. But it is weird because you're like, oh, like I thought, like, is this gonna be like Digger Digwellow who's like passed or something?
Yeah, see, right. I actually thought the whole episode was this is going to be Lawrence.
Yeah, it could be that or someone like that.
Right. Now, I also understand the slight depression of, oh, this kid is dead.
Yeah.
But no, and so here's the thing. I realized about halfway through, it's probably not a legacy character.
I kind of figured that too, but
right. Well, also because there's a plot point is Molly never went to Wit's End. Now, why the dad never took her to Wit's End is a little questionable now that we know this stuff about him. But like, what legacy character would not have gone to Wit's End?
Wits End's always funny when it's like it's the whole thing, right? Is Odyssey a huge town or a small town? Where it's like sometimes it's a small town where it's like, oh yeah, we all went to Wonderworld, and it's like if you went to Wonderworld, you probably went to Wits End.
Yeah, exactly.
Or is it like so big that it's like, well, there is like an Odyssey crowd, and there's also like Wonderworld. Like it's like right, it's like is Odyssey a town of like 5,000 people, or is it a town of like 40,000 or like 50,000 or something?
I was genuinely waiting for the dad to say on the tape recorder, I wanted to take you to Wit's End when you were the right age.
When you were old enough to eat ice cream.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so that's just an interesting wrinkle, and I don't think it's that important. I don't think they thought about that, but if they really have lived in Odyssey this whole time, yeah, it's a little strange that this whimsical father figure never went to Wit's End.
Yeah.
So,
I think the episode, like, right, it hits the needed emotional punches. Fun trip down memory lane. I think the thing kind of like, oh, she got mad. And it's like the whole thing where it's like, right, we tried to keep it from you for as long as possible, like that your father was sick. It's like, I get that, but it's also like, if he was that sick where he's like basically like unable to like do stuff, it's like it does seem intriguing that they didn't try to tell her sooner.
Yeah, so that was actually my thing. So I kind of feel like we could do a whole Odyssey episode about Molly having some trauma from this, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I thought it was going a little bit, right? Like, I thought the episode was maybe going into, like, she's just really sad and doesn't want to, like, deal with the fact that her father's dead.
Right, well, actually, a better reveal, as opposed to I said something stupid to my dad, would have been she's still upset at her parents for keeping it a secret for so long.
Right, like, she could have viewed it as, like, I could have been, like, there's a lot of interesting ways they could have taken it.
Yeah, so I guess that was just my thing. Like, I understand it varies from kid to kid, but the way they make it sounds like they told her at the last possible minute. Maybe that's just me. But that would just be like, oh, this would be an interesting parent-child dynamic to dive into a little bit.
Yeah. I think yeah, no, I agree. But I think it's like I think that's a whole other can of worms they'd have to open up. I don't think they could really
Yeah,
do that justice in like one part.
that's probably true.
I think to me, and this doesn't ruin the episode, but I found it so dumb, is that at the end of the treasure hunt, the reward land.
Yes.
Land
Okay.
is eternal, like the love of God.
I'm surprised they didn't say that. Okay. So, I I've got a lot of thoughts here. One, I guess I'm glad Tom's sister is willing to sell the land in parts.
Yeah.
Two, it sounds like this was kind of a primo piece of land if there was a bench there.
Increased property value for the bench.
Well, I'm just saying that probably
Well,
was a
if it
nice
was a
place.
retreat center, I'd assume there was probably a lot of benches here and there.
Right. I
It
don't know.
does make
I
you
just find
wonder
it
if it's really not a retreat center anymore. What happened to the uh what's her
shepherds.
the shepherds?
I that should be an episode.
Like it's like they moved their whole life to like work at this retreat center, and it's like, oh, it's not a retreat center anymore.
I'm sure the implication is the shepherds have left,
Yeah.
but it would be kind of a funny episode of Molly just hanging around one day and they like walk out of the woods or something.
But yeah, it's like so one, I can't tell, did the mom know that the father had bought the land?
Well, no one acts like this is a surprise to them except for the girl. So, you know what? I'll give the dad that. If he ran it by the mom, I kind of appreciate that.
He bought me land?
Right? Because like, I feel like any normal parent would be like, he did what? If they didn't know.
Yeah, it's just like it's just like funny to me. Like it's like such a thing that no kid would get. And it's like I get it's
Yeah.
supposed to be like right, like what could be this cool thing that he got for her that wasn't just like my continuous love,
Right.
right? Like what could be something symbolic of that? And there, someone in the thing was like land. They were like, what? They
Right.
could. He bought her some of Tom Riley's land.
Yeah, so I do want to say I was curious if the web quest was going to be some company that sells plots of land. It is not. This is not
It's
like
just
that buy a
it's
square foot in
so
Scotland
like
thing.
it sounds like it's such like a America sort of thing.
Yeah, so I guess here's the thing. The episode ends with, the mom saying, I won't invade your personal space, but she wants to have a picnic there, which I think is their way of implying we won't just have Molly run here and, like, do drugs or something.
Yeah.
So, I will be curious, though. I hope this plot of land shows up a few more times.
It could be interesting, right? But like
Right.
I don't think it will ever hear. I mean maybe, right? Hey, let's go to my plot of land, fellow kids.
Maybe that's where the new kids bro is.
What we need a kid with some land. What wit? It's like what kid owns land? Wit. Oh, I know one. Like transition music. You want to use my land?
What's more likely, honestly, is that's the land where the Novacom tower was.
That would be actually really funny, but really bad. It's like, what's this old dilapidated tower?
I
And
mean, like,
why are
'cause
they? Someone's messing with the tower. Another like equipment starts rising from the ground.
that would be great. Because I think I seem to recall at the end of the episode they said it was an acre, and although an acre isn't huge, you could believe that wasn't like maybe immediately noticeable.
Yeah. It's like there's a whole episode where Novacom like secretly buys stuff from Tom Riley's bar, and it's like, we got the land. It's like, wait a minute, they sold some of this already, and that's where we needed our stuff.
Like, honestly, that kind of sounds right, doesn't it?
Except it's a club episode.
I know, but that's true.
Though I could see like something where it's like, but Novacom owns all of Tom Riley's old land. Wait, or Jason probably, or Paul House. Probably it would be Paul House would actually be there. It's like, not all the land.
Well, because remember, Connie, Wint, and Eugene also have an acre from that episode where they do the play.
Yeah.
I guess I could imply they sold it, but actually that's a good... Huh. You know, I hadn't thought about what's happening to Eugene's land now. Maybe that's where Buck and Jules move after they get married.
Got a nice little acre. One small acre. An acre's not very big.
It's a decent size.
On Tom Riley's farm. That's some bad Odyssey fan fiction right there.
4 acres of something.
I guess an acre isn't that bad, but...
I mean, if you're building a little cabin, I would assume it's pretty nice.
Yeah.
So, but yes, the ending of Land, very funny. I did check the web quest. They don't really have one this month. In the sense that usually there's like a video, there's not one. The big thing is
go discover some land you'd like to inherit.
Oh my. No, so it's really just a lot of like links to their other printouts. So it's, here's the verses to read, here's a word search, here's a map of Odyssey, here's the birthday party kit.
Yeah.
So, it's... You can tell it was like, we need an episode, but we can't really tie this one into anything. So,
yeah.
But anyway, I think that wraps up this episode. Join us again for what will hopefully be some normal episode recaps. We're getting there, I promise. I'm done with grad school in June, so I'll have a little more time. But
yeah.
Yes, and for the March episode, which will probably be the start of that Chariots of Fire thing. So
which will be interesting.
That'll be a summer thing, I don't know. Anyway, I'm Will.
I'm John.
We'll see you next time.